Well, I mean, look, it was a short week. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
is that what we're saying to this?
It just got long for Staley.
What the hell was
Did it,
that?
or did it just get shorter?
Or did it get shorter?
Oh,
Yikes.
man. I don't even know really what to say in regards to whatever the hell that was that the Chargers rolled out there. I know Justin Herbert's not. By the way, with the hand injuries, I hope he's got a bidet. Because I don't know how he's getting that.
You're really, really concerned with that. Can we get back to football?
Yeah, please.
I know you're concerned about him wiping his butt, but can we just get back to football?
I'm just saying, there is a
You've said that for like
problem.
3 weeks straight now.
No, I think this is a new one I rolled out.
You've even put it in your notes for the past 3 weeks.
I know, but I haven't gotten to it yet. That's all the good material sitting there. I haven't gotten to it yet. But, so they come out last night, and I'm thinking, all right, they go down 14-0.
They needed a bidet.
Yeah. They needed something.
The Chargers.
It was everything. It was a scoop and score by a 340-pound, 35-year-old defensive lineman. It was a one-handed pick six. It was, a wide receiver throwing a touchdown. It was just a complete dismantling. I can't find one thing that if you're a Charger fan, you come away from that going, well, at least there was this. It's like that. Like, I don't know if the bigger story is the Raiders doing that to the Chargers or the Chargers allowing themselves to be absolutely exposed on national television like that. It looked like they gave up.
Brandon Staley could get fired today, right?
Yeah.
I don't think Mark Davis is off of that one game going to anoint Antonio Pierce the head coach. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he will. But I think that's the difference is the takeaway from this game was it was so – lacking any competition. It felt like the Chargers in a primetime spot didn't even show up to the point where it feels like the last straw. Like if this was the last straw, you'd look back and go, yeah, that makes sense. Like that game had a little bit of everything of this team has given up on their head coach.
They stink.
And the reality is it's kind of built up to this point. Whereas, look, if you're Mark Davis and the Raiders, you're looking at it going, it's a great win. It's a divisional win in prime time at home. It was awesome. But we still, he's 3-3 now as a head coach. We still got to figure this thing out moving forward. And he's got the rest of the season. For the Chargers, it's like they already know they're going to have to find probably a new head coach. It might very well happen in the next 24, 48 hours.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because I'm watching the game last night, and you're showing the sideline of the Chargers, and it's just this look of shock. Is that, have you guys been in a spot to where you're getting beat so bad? Is that what it feels like on the sideline as well, too? Because the optics appeared like they were just shook and had no response and no answer for what was happening, almost shell-shocked.
I can't recall ever losing a game. I actually have, as bad as we were, I don't ever recall losing a game by that many points, ever. Like, I can recall not being competitive in a game, and that felt weird to say, and that happened when I was in the league, but I can't recall being a part of a game where we just got thrashed, to that tune. I don't recall that.
Yeah, I mean, not in the NFL to that extent,
So
that's the thing is, that's what makes it hard is outside of earlier this year where you saw kind of that Miami-Denver game, there weren't many. And the crazy thing about it is like this, they both happened in the AFC West, but this sort of outcome at the end of a season is different than at the beginning of the season. I mean, people's reaction to the whole Vance Joseph and how that whole game went, kind of flew under the radar because it was early. And now we look where the Broncos are, and it's like, oh, okay. But this, unfortunately, could be the nail in the coffin because of how bad Brandon Staley's defense has been. And he's supposed to be a defensive guy, and he's been there now for years. So, I think it's not to take anything away from what the Raiders did. You could talk about both and say, look, the Raiders played great. That was an absolute ass-kicking. And on the flip side, the Chargers didn't show up, and it felt like a team that's kind of given up at this point on their head coach.
Brandon Staley postgame. I'll give him credit. He's been a little testy with the media recently. He stood up there, and he had to wear it. Let's take a listen.
nothing went right for us tonight. And I thought the guys at the end did a good job hanging tough and putting some good drives together on both sides of the ball. But like I said, in that first half, it's the worst that you can play. And it was in all three phases, and, I take full responsibility.
Do you expect to be the coach here tomorrow?
I don't know that.
Do you think you should be?
Yes.
Why?
I know that what I've done here for 3 years, and I know what I put into this, and, I know that we're capable of going. I know the type of coach that I am. I believe in myself. But again, this isn't about me. This is about a group that's hurting in there. We got to get some rest, and we got to get ready for Buffalo.
You say nothing went right tonight. All due respect, last 3 weeks the offense has somewhat been stagnant. You pulled out a win in New England, but with 2 field goals. Do you personally feel there's a disconnect between yourself and the locker room, the players?
I don't.
Why do you still believe that guys still believe in you, that you can go back in there and lead this team to whatever the rest of the season is?
Yeah, you'll go talk to the guys after this, and you'll be able to hear from them. And I know these guys really well.
So that was Brandon Staley.
Can I ask you guys a question off of Brandon Staley?
Yeah.
What does this mean, that them talking about the offense being stagnant? What does this mean for Kellen Moore? I mean, he made the move to seemingly put himself in a position to remove himself from being held of any kind of culpability as to what may or may not have took place with the Dallas offense. What does this mean for Moore?
You know what I thought when I was watching the game last night? I almost wonder if they're more likely to ride it out with Brandon Staley and not turn the reins over to Kellen Moore because of the Herbert injury. Because if you turned it over to Kellen Moore, at least you'd get somewhat of a sample size of, okay, what could this offense look like or this team look like if we had Kellen Moore as our head coach? Because he's been talked about as the head coaching candidate. Now with Easton Stick and, whatever this team is right now, I don't know if you get a true sense of who he could be as a head coach. And it's not like the offense has really lit it up. I came away from that game wondering, I think they're probably just going to ride it out with Brandon Staley. Lee, make sure you spot this in the podcast. Delete it if he gets fired before 9 a.m. Eastern time. I want this taken out. But I just don't know what – maybe they're just like, you know what? Screw it. We'll ride it out. Maybe we'll get a better draft pick out of this whole thing, and then we'll figure it out at the end of this. But it sounds like Kellen Moore's probably going to go elsewhere as well, too.
I mean, the crazy thing about this is we kind of thought, well, if Brandon Staley gets fired, Kellen Moore stays as the interim head coach. But as you're kind of touching on, it doesn't feel like, as bad as the offense has been, like that's going to be part of it. It doesn't help that Easton Sticks now as the quarterback either. But back to the initial point of Brandon Staley's calling card was defense. They're 29th in the league right now. They were 20th last year. They were 23rd his first year. You know what they were the year before when Anthony Lynn was the head coach? Top 10. Like, that's been the most dramatic part of all this. In a roster with guys like Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, I know some of the players have been banged up. Like, players that everyone would sit there and say, like, yeah, that's a solid foundation of a defense. They can't get in the top half of the league. It's bizarre. And it's such a long departure from what they were when Anthony Lynn was head coach. And over the past 3 years, it's like, all right, well, and look, I think Brandon Staley's a nice guy. I think he handles the media well. I think he probably communicates and talks to his team and his coaching staff well. They haven't gotten the results. Like, he seems like a nice guy, and on the outside, maybe if you only saw his interviews with the media and say, all right, he's the right guy for the position. They have not gotten the results. And specifically, they've gotten worse on the side of the football that he coaches. And so I know it sounds overly critical, and I know they've had some injuries, but this is over a 3-year period now. You can't keep using that excuse anymore. He hasn't been able to fix it. So it's tough to watch what this has become. It really is.
And by the way, Khalil Mack's leading the league in sacks. Like, he's having one of maybe the best season of his entire career. Like, you're getting like good performance, and it just this is where we're at. They just roll it out, and here we are on national television getting wiped out. And Al Michaels making over/under point total references before halftime with Kirk Herbstreit there on Amazon Prime.